The mood is totally different. You know, yesterday people were angry, they were frustrated. Basically, Credit Suisse and Credit Suisse shareholders were the losers. Here you see the winners. They are gleeful, they are happy, they see the prospects of the future. Some might be even triumphant because, you know, there were some bad blood between these two banks. They were rivals. So I don't think that people just see a bright future here because there are some uncertainties for UBS after the merger. But basically, I think the UBS shareholders are quite happy this morning.
Is there any way in your mind that this deal does not go through from a legal standpoint?
You know, the only party which might say no to the deal is UBS, because the authorities, the Swiss authorities said yes, based on emergency law, which is quite doubtful, but the authorities said yes. And Credit Suisse doesn't have to say anything. But UBS could withdraw under certain circumstances. Of course, it would be a reputational issue. So I don't think they would withdraw. But in a worst-case scenario, in some months, UBS could say, no, we don't do the deal. But that's the only risk, and I don't see it forthcoming.
Well, and also financial analysts will say that's why they put in so much of a buffer in terms of the price that they acquired, and some of the indemnities come from the government. Yeah. What about the government itself, the Federal Assembly? They're meeting next week to discuss the deal. Is there any way at all that it can be torpedoed as a function of that?
No, actually, politicians have elections to face in half a year. And so, of course, they will talk a lot about what went wrong. They will talk about the board, about the management, and so on. And they have to accept some emergency laws of the federal government. But if they say no, it still stands. So this is really just for show, if you like, because the parliament does not have to say anything next week. Of course, when it comes to the regulatory framework for Swiss banks, they will have a say, but we talk about next year or something like that. The deal will not depend on any votes of the Swiss parliament next week.
Okay, that's good to know going into next week then. Let me just come back to what my colleague Jeff and I were discussing about FINMA. They put out this press release. You saw me looking through it before we went on air. One thing that they were saying is that this was not the supervisor's fault, the fact that Credit Suisse went under in such a fashion. What is your perception of that?
Well, actually, today we don't really know if something wrong happened or not. I'm not surprised that FINMA, the regulator, says we didn't do anything, we didn't have an alternative 2 weeks ago. I doubt it, actually, because there were alternatives. But of course they tried to deflect any blame against them. I think the Parliament probably will put into place a commission on a political aspect to investigate what the authorities did. And so I think this is an early defensive wall that FINMA tried to build right now, because some issues, some measures they took 2 weeks ago were, legally speaking, doubtful. So we will see, in particular regarding the AT1 bonds, if everything went okay. And this is some sort of an early defense right now.